Sorry, my story got interrupted. Good morning. Welcome to Java with Jerry. I was in the middle of a great story. Someday I may tell you too. It is Wednesday, August 1st, 2018, 8/1/18 for those of you out playing lottery numbers today, because there is a lottery tonight. Those are probably lucky numbers. And we're glad you're here with us. We are coming live as always every Wednesday morning from the penthouse suite of Stadium Towers here in the Platinum Triangle in Anaheim, California. And of course, we enjoy you joining us. For those of you who are catching it after the fact on orangeslice.com, thank you for doing that. If you want to get it as a podcast, you know you can sign up there for Podbean and it will come to your device. And you can always catch these on YouTube as well. So many ways to enjoy Java with Jerry. So, what are we going to do today? Well, as always, we'll do a little bit of national, state, and local news. I may even throw in a little sports now because, after all, we're getting to the sport time of year, right? And then we'll have an interview with our guest. So our guest today, for show number 30, this is show number 30, is my first guest who is on show number 1. So you'll enjoy having her back. It's Lacy Schoen. Lacy Schoen is the CEO, entrepreneur, founder of Team Lead Inc. and Real Women, Real Success, and she has led a half a dozen or more businesses. She's an artist, a success coach, an author. She does all kinds of stuff, and so you'll learn a lot from having her here, a really talented woman. And we will also have our feature of the day, and today's feature is You Can't Make This Stuff Up, and I've got one that I don't think you'll believe. So let's get to it, because I got a lot of things to ask Lacy about, and even though we both talk very quickly, you should put on your fast ears today, because we both speak in a quick cadence. We'll never get it all in. All right. National news. So a Troy Balderson in Ohio's 12th Congressional District last night eked out a razor-thin win over a man named O'Connor, a Democrat who was a young man running against him in what was a very tight race in a special election in August, only to fill out the term for a few months. They'll both be running again as the nominees of their party against one another in November. And of course, it's a seat the Republicans have held, I think, for decades, more than 40 years. And so everybody was paying attention to it because they thought it was a sort of referendum on the president. Besides the fact that this was a special election, which means that 26 people showed up to vote, a little more than that, because after all, it was getting a lot of press. The president came in at the 11th hour, campaigned for Balderson, and Balderson pulled it out by about a shade under a percentage point, right? Too close for people to officially call last night, but it looks as though he got it, and I don't know whether or not it's subject to an automatic recount. I think you have to be at 0.5% or less in Ohio. O'Connor, interestingly, though, for those of you who are handicapping, what does this mean for November? Does that mean there'll be a blue wave because he got so close in a really red district? Remember that it's a special election, and very few people come out for special elections, so it wasn't a mover for people on the right. And also that O'Connor lost in a narrow race as a centrist, right? He ran as a centrist, old school Democrat, not your current socialist Democrat candidate. And the Socialist Democrat candidates that had the endorsement of people like Ocasio-Cortez or Sanders lost all their races last night. So stand by. I don't think there's a blue wave, but it's an interesting race, and I'm sure everybody will be paying attention to it in November as well. So that's our national story. Seems that when the president goes somewhere, he's able to pull people across the finish line. So that's an important thing for Republicans as they move forward into November. All right, state story. State story is a terrible one. I hate to have to bring it up again, but it is just devastating to our state. The Mendocino fire in Northern California, and there are fires all over California, but the Mendocino one has now turned into hundreds of thousands of acres and grown to be the largest fire, according to CAL FIRE, in the state's history. We have more than 14,000 firefighters on the front lines all over the state of California fighting fires in California's heat wave that we are having. And we have one even in Orange County that erupted a couple days ago in the Cleveland National Forest, burning between Orange County and Riverside County, heading toward my friends in Lake Elsinore, and I hope it doesn't go down that hill. We're hoping the winds stay down. But a lot of what is burning is fuel that really shouldn't be there, in my view. And there have been news stories of late carried in a variety of different papers about things we've been talking about for years, which is that the Obama-era expansion of the way we dealt with the policies in the Department of the Interior and with our forest management has just exacerbated a problem that we've been having in the West because of environmental policies. We don't thin our forests like we used to, and our guest today, Lacy Schoen, actually had a lot of experience in forestry, and maybe I'll ask you a little bit about it and squeeze just one more topic into her day. But I think she would agree we need a different kind of policy in the manner in which we manage our forests. There's a lot of dead trees hanging around. There's forests that ought to be thinned, and that's a lot of fuel that doesn't need to be there. I'm not sure it's all that healthy for the forest either. So anyway, our thoughts and prayers go out to every firefighter on the front lines, 14,000 of them, plus a lot of people running a lot of equipment as well. And we hope that they get a handle on all these fires. All right, local story. The local story is really more of a shout-out warning to parents than it is a news story that I think is worthy of a lot of discussion. It's about an Anaheim man who was arrested in Fountain Valley this week. He was arrested on Friday, August 3rd. His name is Troy Schellenbaum, and apparently Mr. Schellenbaum decided he wanted to go meet a 15-year-old little girl and have relations with her, and so he arranged for her to meet him in a park in Fountain Valley. Instead, he met undercover officers. And the undercover vice officers arrested Mr. Schellenbaum, who happened to be, by the way, a registered sex offender who was on parole for rape. Right? Why do we have rapists on parole? So pay attention to what your kids are doing on social media and who they're talking to and who they're meeting. In this case, Schellenbaum didn't get to talk to a 15-year-old girl. He got to talk to a cop, which is a good thing for us and a bad thing for him. But the sickening point of the story is that you need to be vigilant because there's dirt balls like Schellenbaum running around all over the place. So parents, beware. All right. I'm throwing in a sports story. Why? Because we're only a few days away from professional football. Exhibition games are beginning, which means it's time for sports again. Amen. We have lived through the drought, and now here it is, August. By the way, on college sports, which you know I pay a lot of attention to, the Bruins will kick off their season September 1st against the Cincinnati Bearcats. Looking forward to that. Can't wait to be in the shadows of the Arroyo Secos as we begin the Chip Kelly area. So go Bruins and go Packers. I got to get my Packers in there. All right. I'm going to bring our guest on scene. So Lacy Schoen, you come join me and get settled in. And while you do that, I will tell people about you because nobody really knows who
I think you already did that.
I think I did, but not as much as I'm going to. How are you?
Okay. I'm good. Thank you.
All right. My friend Lacy got her degree from California State University in Long Beach, so she's a 49er. She has held executive roles in 5 nonprofits, most recently the Association of California Cities Orange County, where she was the founding CEO. And I'm going to ask her a little bit about that, so I don't want to talk about it too much. She's been a key contributor to Orange County's Ending Homelessness Plan. She won numerous awards, including Senator Lou Correa when he was a senator, now a congressman. Women Making a Difference. She won the California Women Leadership Association Women to Watch for her pioneering work in leading collaborative public policy, and that's a part of what we'll talk about with her when we talk about ACCOC. She used to be a host of her own video public policy programming for Cox Civic Connection in Orange County. She served on a million nonprofit boards. I don't have time for all that, but she currently serves at California State University Fullerton's Women Leadership Advisory Board. So that's the other Cal State, not the one where she has her degree. She's a best-selling author. She's a design artist wearing some of her designs today. We'll talk maybe a little bit about that, but we talked about that last time. And of course, the founder of Real Women, Real Success, and something called Women Thriving at Work that we're going to talk a lot about. She has launched and led 8 businesses in her lifetime. Makes me exhausted. 3 of them are still active businesses today, 2 service-based, 1 product business. She coaches women who want to leave their jobs and become entrepreneurs. Nobody knows more about that than somebody who has taken a lot of risks. She's a high-performance coach. She lives in Norco. It says here with her husband and daughter, but I say with her Sicilian husband. Hey, Dean, know you're working today. And her daughter, Tanaya, and her granddaughter now.
Yes.
So
Andrea June.
She's a grandma on top of everything else that she does. Welcome.
Thank you.
So I have talked a little bit about the fact that you've led 8 businesses and you've got a lot of entrepreneurial background, and most people know you, but some don't. So talk a little bit about your business background, because I think it informs what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, when I started business coaching recently, I thought back to what my credentials are in that area, and I actually didn't realize I'd acquired or started and run 8 businesses in my lifetime. But the first one you'll appreciate. All of them successful except for one. But it was a great learning lesson. But my first one was very successful at 8 years old. I was already repurposing scraps. My mom was designing.
You count that as one of the businesses you ran, the one you started when you were 8? That's one of the 8?
Oh, yes, it was successful. And it's a model right now because I was using scraps from my mom's fabric. She was designing these beautiful little outfits, which in 1971 she was selling for $100. So now
Wow.
that's
Whoa.
like $1,000, right?
Whoa.
So her business was difficult, even though she was way before her time. These things would sell like hotcakes now, but back then they were a little bit edgy and before their time. So I would take her scraps and make halter tops for the neighborhood girls for 50 cents a piece. And it was thriving for several months.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. They would come in, pick their fabric, and it was repurposing, right? Super popular now.
Yeah. That's recycling scraps.
So
That's
that was
great.
my first foray into entrepreneurship.
I never knew that your mom was your role model, and now I can see where you sort of picked up those.
Yeah, in some ways.
I'm gonna do my own things.
But after that, landscape maintenance, landscape design, transcription, of course, nonprofit, and now we have 3 running. So,
but now your businesses are profit businesses, and you do have, though, 20 years in nonprofit businesses, and I want to talk a little bit about that, Lacy.
Sure.
And you also run a business that does design work, so you're still sort of taking scraps and turning them into things, because you're wearing some of it.
I'm wearing
a jewelry business, which we
vintage
talked about last
scraps,
time.
yeah.
So you still are doing what you were doing as an 8-year-old. I just want to point that out for people. So once you start
passionate about reuse.
But I want to talk a little bit about the businesses that you did take a big chance in the nonprofit world, and in particular, I want to focus on the one where you sort of started in a new space that had never existed before when you were the founding CEO of ACCOC, and you took a huge personal risk and a risk for your staff. What made you do that? Why did you take that risk?
Oh, that's a great question. Women, I work with a lot of women, and there's some stats out there that prove out that women don't take leaps and risks, like, for instance, apply for a high-level job unless they feel they meet 60 or 100% of the qualifications, whereas men will take the leap if they meet only 60%. So I didn't. I got the man side. I got the gene, the bravery gene, or you could call it the lunacy gene if you want. But I just, and it's not that there's no fear. It's that I'm comfortable holding hands with fear.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I was just born with it. And if you're passionate about it, which I was at the time, the idea of asserting collaborative public policy in the county and throughout the state was an exciting prospect to me. So that's why I did it.
But it was an area in which you really hadn't been working before in municipal government, sort of in that space, because that's what ACCOC does. It's the gathering of all the municipal businesses and their colleagues and partners and some of the agencies and private sector businesses that they deal with. Because you had been involved in public policy before, right? You worked for worked for people who are doing public policy, but not in that space with municipalities. And it was a big risk, and it never existed before, and it had to have a budget thing. And so the reason I wanted to ask you about taking that risk is because I do sort of notice from spending decades myself around entrepreneurs that women aren't as much a risk taker as men, although I think you guys take risks because you end up marrying men. But largely, you're not risk takers in the business setting, and I wondered what that was about. And so you began to talk about it. What is this notion that I have to be 100% ready to do something before I do it? Where does that come from? Is it a cultural thing that we've done to our daughters, or what?
Yeah, I think it comes from how we're raised, but it's also changing. And I think, one of my missions is to help women feel empowered to build a life of their dreams. And you see more and more women reinvent themselves. That's part of what I do, is I help women reinvent themselves so they can become the person they need to be to have the life they want to have. And women are getting more and more disillusioned with either corporate America or organizations. I mean, there's still, in all the years we've been teaching leadership, has anything changed in how many great companies there are in terms of leadership? It's still the same. Yeah. So I think there's a movement towards entrepreneurialism. So in just a year and a half, by 2020, that is a year and a half, right?
Yeah.
40% of our workforce, almost half, will be entrepreneurs or own their own business in some way. Just 10 years later, in 2030, 60%.
Wow.
And a lot of those are going to be women. And I sort of found this out by accident as I started my coaching business. With all the women that I'm coaching, every single one is looking to leave highly, highly successful careers as a PhD scientist researcher, as an environmental engineer. These women are highly successful in their own right, want to leave and have their own businesses.
That's an interesting thing. So what's the lesson learned from your risk-taking at ACCOC that you're teaching as a coach now? And by the way, what's a high performance coach? Do I have to be a high performer to get a coach, or what's the deal?
You can think of high performance as the next iteration of the 7 habits of highly effective people.
Oh, okay. So
what the High Performance Institute does is it studies highly successful people. Think Oprah Winfrey, think Tony Robbins, think all the people that you admire that are millionaires and making a difference in the world. What are the characteristics they have in common? Well, it turns out they all have these 5 characteristics, which are clarity, energy, courage, influence, and productivity. So it's literally coaching people to develop those skill sets so they can achieve whatever it is that they want to achieve.
Yeah, and those are things you can learn to do. You don't have to be born with
Absolutely.
them. So they're not nature, they're nurture. So
Absolutely.
So what are you doing as a high performance coach, and what is this thing called Women Thriving at Work?
Yeah, well,
does that mean they've got coverage from Kaiser Permanente, or what do you mean by their thriving?
High performance coaching is just, I have a number of one-on-one clients working with them to change their lives in the way that they want to reinvent themselves, right? That's my specialty, helping women reinvent themselves. It's interesting, I've had to do that. Even in my 30-year nonprofit career, I had to reinvent myself with each new industry.
Yeah.
So it's something that I kind of know intuitively, but putting the high performance coaching behind it sort of gives me a structure with in how to coach women who want to do something new and different with their lives, or just make significant improvements that aren't currently what their life is like, what they want to do, whether it's owning a business or just having a better relationship. And your second question was, what's Women Thriving at Work?
Yeah,
Actually, Women Thriving at Work will probably eventually evolve into Women Thriving in Business, because a lot of the women in that are also looking at doing the same things. And the common denominator is this. I talk to women about growth, right? Personal growth. I personally believe that personal growth is life longevity. So if you look at life as an ever-increasing spiral, right?
Yeah.
Let's just take an example of kindergarten. You go along this spiral, you learn stuff in kindergarten, and you end up at that side of that loop, and then you go again and you learn more in 2nd grade, right? That's your whole life. Then you have a career, you learn a bunch, you get really great at it, and people stop there. People stop at the end of their career and they go, I'm going to retire. Well, personally, I believe that's death. So these women, and you've done it, you've reinvented yourself, right? You had your own legal practice, and now you're in public policy.
Yeah.
It's life to keep learning. What I tell my coachees and Women Thriving at Work is that just because you're refusing to stop there doesn't mean you're crazy. It doesn't mean you can't do this. We all have the same amount of personal power. We all do. But it's continuing on that growth pattern. Right. That is what I think is eternal life.
Yeah, it's learning all the time. So you're coaching in Women Thriving at Work in like a group setting, right? And these are women that dial in and do this online, because they're all over the world. Some of these people, I mean, you got people in foreign countries that are dialing in, which must be interesting for the women, because now you're in a group talking to a bunch of really highly successful people who are also stretching like you are, and they're all over the place doing very interesting things.
And it's amazing the commonalities from different regions and different areas of the world that women have.
Yeah, I think it's the commonality of all entrepreneurs. I don't think it's necessarily something natural to a woman. I think men could profit from this as well. It's you're teaching people who generally don't take those risks, which is why we're talking about this. But what you're teaching is stuff that everybody could use. It's that continuing improvement that you were talking about. I've never heard the spiral analogy, but I'll steal that, because I steal most of your good stuff. So you have all these women gathering, and they get together in this sort of community online, right? And are they working as a group toward particular goals? How does this thing work? What's a day look like?
Yeah. So we have one tomorrow night, and I'm going to be presenting how to do a launch. So that terminology is how to do a launch online, right? Because all these women they're writing books that they want to sell online. They're starting businesses. They're starting coaching themselves. One of the women in my group is a book writing coach, right? Teaches you how to write a book. And so we're going to go through the elements of marketing online, from what you need to start all the way through a successful launch, just the 30,000 foot level, because as you know, this is what Dean and I have spent tens of thousands of dollars learning over the last 3 to 4 years. So I'm going to hone down what I know, and as each individual wants to know more, I'll craft the next event next month around. So like I already have a request. How do I build credibility, both in person and online? How do I put myself out there and build credibility? So that's something else we'll be doing. And
so these women are collaborating as they're doing this, right? Which is another skill set that, by the way, those of you who are thinking about being entrepreneurs, you better begin to hone, because you haven't got all the answers. There's no way you're going to get there from point A to point B by yourself. You're going to need mentors and colleagues and mentees and other people who are going to roll up their sleeves and make you successful
The
as
new
well.
terminology is social learning.
Yeah.
Very powerful.
Yeah, very good. So Women Thriving at Work as a group, you come in, you sign it, but you also do one-on-one coaching with all these same women, right?
Not all of them, some of them.
But a bunch, yeah. So when you do the individual coaching, are you just doing a deeper dive in the kinds of things that interest them, or are you working on one of those five skill sets?
We're working on the 5 skill sets and how it applies to where they want to drive their life. Everybody's on a different track, right? Sometimes it takes people longer to figure out that clarity piece. What do I want to do next in my life? What am I passionate about? I've done the same thing for 30 years. Now, how do I know what to move towards that will give me, what I'm looking for?
So Lacy, have you developed like exercises for people to do this? If clarity is their issue as opposed to, organizational skills or some other one of the 5, the energy part, right? Do you have exercises for them to go do? Here's your homework. You need to go do this.
Actually, yes. Yeah. On the energy piece, yes.
Yeah.
On the clarity piece, so anybody who's certified in coaching knows that it's about asking the right questions.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't. I do some teaching, but mostly what I do is help people unfold what they either already know or are driven to do just by asking the right questions.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's about asking the right questions.
Yeah, that's cool. So can you share a couple of stories of some of the women without violating their privacy and getting us all sued that you're coaching and sort of who they are and what they're going
You'll
through?
appreciate this one.
But I think some of these are just interesting
You'll appreciate
stories.
this one. Very high level, multiple PhD researcher, runs a research program for a major university, doesn't like it, hates it, feels like the university system stifles creativity.
Wow.
So
an enlightened university.
Yeah. So she wants to reinvent how the university system actually works for new and up-and-coming researchers.
Cool.
And has come to the realization that must happen outside the system on a private basis, right? You see more and more private schools popping up, private universities.
And a lot of online universities now. A lot of people just want to do it in their own space and their own time, and they don't feel the need to have that sort of communal experience in the classroom that we all sort of traditionally got, right?
Right.
Especially millennials. All you people are very highly technical on your widgets, and your widgets are always with you. And so you'll carve out an hour somewhere and go take a class.
Yeah. So that's one example.
Yeah. So when they bring a plan to you and say, okay, this is sort of where I want to go, you spend more time working on them than working on their plan, right? They go work on their plan. You're really working on the skills.
You know what? To change your life, you need clarity. You need to strategize your actions. You have to clear the way in your environment. So you have to optimize your environment in case you've got things that are holding you back, whether it's a spouse, a family member, a job, or whatever. And you really have to work on your mindset, right? Because a lot of people have preconceived ideas about what it takes to succeed and what's holding them back that actually aren't true. We tell ourselves a lot of lies. So it's about getting through all that so they can just go forward. They come up with a plan, but again, I help them do that by asking the right questions.
So now how does Real Women, Real Success sort of fold into what you're doing with Women Thriving at Work? Because I know you also have sort of a whole series of videos that you do for people that sort of bring them this kind of timely information.
Right. Well, I started out with my specialty is just helping women climb the corporate ladder or re-enter the workforce, which has been really interesting. And a lot of people follow my videos having to do with getting along in the workplace, dealing with dysfunctional workplaces and that kind of thing. But Women Thriving, Real Women, Real Success is the umbrella for all the other stuff that I do, the coaching, the online group. And then we just incorporated this year. And so that team lead is the umbrella corporation for Dean's coaching business and my coaching and training business.
Yeah, and Dean, I know you're going to be watching this later. I understand you're working hard on a project, so I will forgive you for not, coming by today. But he also is teaching in an arena in which there's a lot of stress and pressure, and he helps firefighters either get promotions or get their first gig as a firefighter. Not an easy thing to do, a very competitive scene, and he's really good at that. And we'll have him on again because he's a very interesting person to talk to about this whole notion of firefighting. He would have been very interested in that story about the firefighters all on the front lines. And so let me take you off track just for a moment, just because I thought that was a timely story when I read it yesterday, knowing that you had spent some time in the forest yourself. Talk a little bit about that experience and about what your notion is of what's going on with these fires.
National Forest Association, it was the deputy director there and did a lot of their fundraising. And what I learned through the process of working with the public is that we love our forests to death. So, and
Yeah.
we also suppress fire. So the fact that we suppress fire means our forests are overgrown, but a lot of us don't know it because we don't live in the time period where we would have seen what it looks like naturally. So we don't know that forests actually look more like a park, because that's decades old since they've looked like that. So people think we have to maintain it the way it is. Actually, we need to cut and thin. And it actually does harm endangered species like owls and eagles and that when it's too thick because they can't find their prey.
Yeah.
So I like to say we're loving our forests to death. They're too thick and then they burn like we're seeing when we don't take care of them.
And then we do more damage to the environment than if we were intelligent about it and let loggers and the Forest Service work together to do intelligent thinning. And so it's that's a great subject, and maybe we'll have an entire day we'll talk about sort of that whole notion, not just of the forest, but I think a lot of the environmental policies that we've adopted for very good reasons have a lot of unintended consequences which aren't so good. I'm reminded of a story that you once told, that your ex-husband told when he was in the forest about the frogs and the snakes. And
Yes.
we'll have to tell that story sometime. That's an opportunity for you to be teased about the next show when I bring Lacy back, and maybe we'll do a joint show with Dean. We can talk about all of these fire policy things.
Sure.
It'll be kind of an interesting show to do. So if women want to get to the next step, all right, you've got people who are listening today who go, I need
Sure.
that. I need a coach. I need to be able to get into a collaborative group of women like this who are stretching. How do they do that? Where do they go?
Just,
How do they get
they
information?
can email me at lacy@lacyschoen.com, or they can go to Real Women, Real Success and look at the contact page and reach out to me. There's information on both one-on-one coaching as well as the Women Thriving at Work on my website.
Cool. Make sure you do that. Reach out to Lacy and get some of that coaching that you need. And good for you for stretching a little bit and trying to do something as entrepreneurs. We need more of you. So that is all I've got time for, believe it or not.
Okay.
We're out of time. This goes
No
by so
problem.
quickly. We're going to do our feature, and then we're going to take a dash out of here. That Wednesday has come and gone. See, I tell you, this is going to go too fast. All right. So what is our feature today? It's You Can't Make This Stuff Up. And I ran across this story and had to pick it. I think actually my producer is probably unhappy because I think we were supposed to do a millennial word today. But anyway, I threw this in because it was so timely. It happened last Friday. So in California, the government is gun nuts. Not gun concerned, not gun silly, not gun phobic, gun nuts. I mean, like nuts, crazy nuts. The state legislature passed legislation asking the impossible. They wanted every cartridge that is ejected from a weapon having that discharge round imprinted with a mark at the end of the cartridge where the firing pin strikes it. So remember that a round is multiple parts. You've got the cartridge, which holds the gunpowder and the propellant, and then you've got the bullet in the front, and then there's a striking pad at the back of that that round, and a firing pin in the weapon hits it, it explodes, the round moves through the barrel, and then the cartridge is ejected. When it's ejected, they want the firing pin to have left a mark on the back of that casing so they can pick it up and they can know which weapon discharged it. Okay, so they want every weapon to leave a distinct imprint, so when somebody finds a spent round, they'd be able to discern the weapon that fired it, a sort of bullet fingerprint. Boy, I can't even read my own stuff. So last Friday, a 3-judge panel of the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit upheld the microstamping law that California passed, even though it is only theoretical. In other words, it can't be done. There isn't a manufacturer yet who can make a gun in which they can put a distinct imprint on every firing pin that will leave a distinct imprint on every cartridge. But don't let the lack of technology hold the legislature back. Nobody can make it happen, but that doesn't matter. They want the firing pins to be able to, in fact, imprint a cartridge. And if they can't, so what? Now, do you think that criminals or drug dealers or MS-13 or anybody else using a gun illegally is going to worry about whether or not their fireprint could imprint it, even if that existed? No. But gun manufacturers now that can't do that won't be able to sell a gun in California because they won't be California compliant. And so the weapons won't be available. So that's the new move on their part. You know this is going to get challenged in court because you know the weapon makers are going to say, I can't get there. The legislature might as well have told people to get to the sun and go park it there. Sooner or later, they're going to say, if they can keep this law in place, well, now all the guns that are out in the public that don't have this technology, that are older guns, need to be confiscated or taken away because we can't have guns on the street that don't have this microstamping technology. So to protect, turn your head softly to the side and say the children. To protect the children, they'll come and say, okay, I gotta gather up all your guns because they don't have microstamping technology. So it shows that the courts are completely out of whack. In gun nuts, California, they might as well have honestly said, go live on the sun. Can't do that, can't microstamp cartridges, but after all, it's for turn your head to the side and say softly, the children. Okay, that's my story. You can't make this stuff up. That's our episode, come and gone quickly. We will see you next Wednesday. We have special guests for you, but I'm not allowed to announce who they are. How's that for a tease? You got to come and tune in and see. We're working on details for it, but I think you'll enjoy the show. I want to thank Lacy for being here. Thank you for coming in and doing this. As always, you get to take home your mug. Dina's been a guest. She's been a guest. She's going to have a set of these. She's going to entertain people with Java with Jerry mugs. And you can get your very own if you send in a story, a dumb criminal story that we can use. Even though we didn't do dumb criminals this week, remember, we do those stories. You can always catch these things on Orange Slice. Go sign up there for your Podbean podcast. Go find Real Women, Real Success and get some coaching from this highly talented woman. And we will see you next Wednesday. In the meantime, have a great week, do good work, and we'll see you on Java with Jerry next Wednesday morning. Cheers.